full throat tea.
Oh, wait. I'm going to do the little thing. Never, it's too late. Never mind. I was going to do like the 30-second countdown thing so that people would have time to join, but we're already...
Oh, we're live.
I think that he's got plenty of time.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
We are already super late. What's up to all our sidekicks and henchfolk out there in the Geek Nation? You're currently tuning into the CultPop Podcast live stream. I am your host, Johnny Destructo, owner of Johnny Destructo's Hero Complex at 4327 Main Street in Philadelphia, PA. It's a comic book store. If you would like some of those things, contact me and I will make sure you get them. With me this week is graphic t-shirt enthusiast Noel Bartocci. Noel,
Hi.
tell the people something.
Something I'm going to tell you right now is I'm happy to be here.
Oh, that's nice. Len, who devoured a plate of shrimp and grits 2 minutes before the show and is now enjoying a blow pop to wash that down. Tell the people something.
I am happy that Noel is here.
Oh, you guys are going so quick, I didn't have time to read back to my notes. Also with me this week is the recently returned from a fact-finding sabbatical, Brian Lieb. B,
Hey.
tell the people something.
One of the facts. Nothing to report. I'm sorry. There was nothing.
Oh,
I mean, that in itself is a fact.
It's true. Actually, it
Unless
does
you're lying.
some things.
the world is like empty of facts lately, or we ignore them, so that's cool.
Yeah, they exist independent of us, right? We just know them or don't. That's a fact.
Or we
Or
refuse
is it
to
actually?
acknowledge them. And joining us for the first time in a very long time is good friend of the show, Pink Apocalypse. Hi, Pink.
Hello.
Pink's been with us since the Ain't It Cool News days.
I've been up since like 5 o'clock yesterday morning, so I'm a little fuzzy, but I'm here.
Well,
I mean, it's still much earlier in the morning for you too. Like you are 3 hours away from us. Wait, you're 3 hours in the past, right? Because that's how time zones work.
Mhm.
You're 3 hours in our past.
You guys are
we're-
clear over in Philly.
Yes.
Yep.
I couldn't remember who was in New Jersey. Somebody told me a couple of days ago that fucking A is New Jersey for Indeed. I was going to ask you guys if that's true.
Oh, fucking A, yeah.
Okay.
Indeed.
Yeah, fucking A. I mean, we don't
or-
have to.
Fucking A, right.
Fucking A, right? We don't have to like re-indict the word John, right? You're familiar with that too, are you not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I only relatively recently, in terms of years, learned that was a Philly area thing. I thought that was a national slang, maybe even international, but no. And
No.
I like it. I like a good utility word, right? Throw that John in anywhere.
Yeah. Brandon Jackson Short says, "Hi, Pink. Good to see you."
Hello, Brandon.
Oh, the family's all here.
Yeah.
All right. So, y'all, we are here to talk about this week's books. However, it's the last Sunday of the month. So generally what we do is we pick a select few books from this week, a lesser amount than usual, because we engage in what we call book club.
Book club!
Yeah. And it has been requested that we discuss Eternals, the trade paperback collection by Neil Gaiman and John Romita Jr. from Marvel. I want to say it was like, what?
2007?
Yeah. And, it's going to be a big blockbuster movie coming out from Marvel at some point when blockbuster movies are a thing that exist again in the later times. So we thought we would talk about that. We don't have any letters. Christopher St. Saucy Goodnight and the rest of the listeners have been lazy this week. Sons of jerks. So I guess we'll just move on to the books. Immortal She-Hulk #1, written by Al Ewing, with art by John Davis Hunt, with cover by Joe Bennett. In the wake of Empire, Jen Walters goes immortal. The Katati invasion has changed everything for Jennifer Walters. Now, she seems to have a new lease on life. But things are never that simple for the Gamma-powered. Al Ewing gives She-Hulk the immortal treatment with a horrifying standalone tale. Wait a minute. Wait, what? This is a standalone tale? This is a one-shot?
No, it wasn't.
I mean-
Not for me.
This itself is a one-shot, but I think it might lead into some other thing.
Yeah, so that was one of the things I kind of want to talk about this book. It is a it's a continuation of the event, but it's a one shot, but it has to do with like Deep in the Woods continuity for Immortal Hulk, the book. So it's like exists in this weird space. I'm not exactly sure. Is this supposed to be for her? Is it supposed to be for the Hulk book? Is it supposed to be what? I don't know.
I thought it was building to some. I thought she would be doing something after, like, be featured in some way after this. But
well, I mean, the way that it ends, it's just. So you think that she has a new like a new status quo of she's immortal and can never, like, she gets killed and then is resurrected in and of herself, which is like the Immortal Hulk thing, if anybody's reading that. But at the end of this, it's revealed that, like, nah, she's not. If she dies again, she's over, because the leader is down there, is in hell, controlling it all. This is it's a horror book.
The basement of hell.
Yeah, have you been reading Immortal Hulk, Pink?
No.
Oh, it's a good horror book. I'm like 20 issues in. But the whole conceit of it, though, is that gamma radiation is it's like that whole thing about how science and magic is just science we don't understand yet. Gamma radiation is almost like a conduit. So, like, if you are hyper exposed to it, you start to kind of understand and see this green door. So when you and the green door is used for other things to pass through. So Banner himself is almost like a conduit to this green door where other things can come through and possess him. And that's why there's all kinds of different manifestations of the Hulk and stuff. It's a really, really crazy, weird story. It's really good.
Well, I think the green door, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not a long time reader of the Hulk. I only dip in here and there when it seems interesting. But if I remember correctly, Peter David did the green door quite a bit during his run, where it would be a way for Bruce Banner to keep the Hulk locked away, or other versions of the Hulk locked away, his other personalities and whatnot, right? Is that correct? Does anyone remember this?
I never read it.
I remember there being, like, some mental construct that he would go in and talk to the other ones, and then, like, came to an arrangement with them, and then Professor Hulk. When you said it sounded kind of familiar, but I could also just be like,
it's a supernatural construct now, which honestly, to me, that makes it even cooler. The fact that they took old continuity and kind of turned it into a horror trope.
Was it like an abstract metaphysical thing before in the past, or?
It was like a psychological tool. Leonard Johnson used whatever construct he used to, like. That was the beginning of the Hulk, and as a side of Banner's personality that was repressed or whatever, and so he used that to be able to have them, and the gray Hulk was like another side of the personality, slightly different, another personality, I should say.
Was it like a Stephen King Mind Palace kind of thing?
Yeah, one of those. There might have been
a place you can
a
place you can go in your head.
Exactly.
It's only yours, kind of thing.
Yeah. And then,
what do you guys think of this book? I guess nobody's really reading Immortal Hulk. What do you guys think?
I fell off of Immortal Hulk, even though I was really enjoying the horror, the body horror aspects of it. There's a lot of, like, Cronenbergian horror stuff in there that I really enjoy, but I just sort of fell off. So yeah, I'm not up to date for sure.
Yeah, but what did you think of this book, JD?
This book I really liked, and I was excited for Immortal She-Hulk #2. I didn't realize that this was a one shot, which is weird because I run a store. You'd think I'd be more observant, but I was really stoked about it, and I really wanted more of this. And it's been frustrating, if you look at the bottom of the screen here, you see 3 panels where you see 2 of She-Hulk sort of hands on hips in her outfit, and then her shrinking down to Jennifer Walters size. And it's just 3 panels of a transformation. And some of the comic book news sites, I guess, were talking about this. And this was the image that they used for their clickbait, basically. And boy, oh boy, just the amount of comments down. Every single time you click on it, all the comments are from, like, sad dudes who were like, she's not hot anymore. She looks like a man. And all these sort of, like, weird transphobic jokes and stuff. So that was pretty frustrating, but the book itself I thought was great. And it was,
were they talking
nice
about
to kind of relive the origin of She-Hulk and sort of her different transformations. This is called The 3 Deaths of She-Hulk. And I kind of forgot that she technically died after Civil War II, after getting hit in the chest with a missile. I thought she was just sort of in a coma.
No, she died and then she came back with PTSD.
Yeah, which I loved.
That whole Mariko Tamaki run.
That was great.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that She-Hulk is a little different than she's been recently. She's more savage. She's not just like Jennifer Walters in a She-Hulk body. But I think it's interesting that she wears black and purple now, but when she reverted to Jennifer Walters, she's in white and purple, which is a classic costume kind of colors for her when she was more intelligent. I don't know, I just think it's an interesting...
The costume, her uniform, according to like Avengers, Jason Aaron's Avengers has utility. So it's based off of like celestial technology. She's got this problem where she's overpowering. Ever since that last death, this version of She-Hulk has been kind of more savage. She is constantly emanating radiation, and she has been able to almost like burst it out at certain times. It's this new like tool or whatever, but that suit absorbs the energy, and she's able to direct it. So it's I don't know. They keep coming up with story reasons, but people keep freaking out that like I want my sexy She-Hulk back. It's like, whatever, dude.
Yeah, I miss when she was hot. Like, shut up.
And they'll go ahead.
So if you guys will permit me some like really basic idiot noob questions, because I've got like a weird random scattering of decades of back issues I've read, but I've been out for a long time. Back in the day, she spoke normally. When did they do the switch where she's talking like the Hulk now in like short, broken sentences? And
Avengers. Avengers. It was Jason Aaron's start of his run, and she doesn't understand why so much because she still has all her faculties. It's just vocalizing because they'll do thought balloons that it's just Jennifer Walters, but it doesn't come out.
That kind of threw me because the last extended reading contact I had with her years ago, she was speaking normally, so I was like, "Whoa, what's going on here?" So her new status quo is kind of a low-key mystery for the whole Avengers run thus far, like why she's got a different relationship with energy, why she can't speak the way that she was before, even though she's all up there upstairs, and she's coming off of PTSD, so it's all just kind of underlying this is different.
Yeah. And
the shoe hasn't dropped yet. So everyone's kind of reacting based off of she just doesn't look the same anymore and she sounds stupid.
Yeah, she looks like a dude.
Yeah.
I'm like, she looks like a green irradiated gamma monster. Shut up.
I didn't get that at all, but yeah.
There have been, to be fair, there have been some artists that don't handle her well. I think it was what was it in that Captain Marvel run? She like that artist basically drew a giant dude with long hair. Yeah. Like it looked like the Hulk, but Ed McGuinness and John Davis Hunt, like she looks like a female. She's just a Hulk irradiated monster. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but that's gonna happen from artist to artist with everybody. I myself, just like Pink, I remember when She-Hulk was basically Jennifer Walters, but in a hotter, taller, greener body. And while that She-Hulk visually may be the one that speaks to me the most because I grew up on it, and specifically that She-Hulk was drawn by John Byrne. This She-Hulk, I can appreciate, they're doing something different with her, and I'll ride with it. I like this book so much, one, because I thought the artwork was amazing in it. I thought that she was well proportioned in it. I thought everybody in it was well proportioned, even like Wolverine in this book. I love the Thor that this artist draws in the book. I like that this was an explanation of, and this is where it's really confusing. Probably JD's probably with me on this. It's very much an introduction into who She-Hulk is now, very like truncated for this book, which is why it reads as the number one of an ongoing issue. I mean, never mind that it has number one on the front of it, which is again misleading. If it is indeed in one shot, then you don't need to put a number on it. Just put out the book. But if you're going to put the number one and then have a story that is basically catching you up on where we last saw She-Hulk and where she is now, that is not a one. That's not a one shot, ladies and gentlemen. That's a meanwhile on She-Hulk. So that's what was confusing about this book. I really enjoyed it, but upon coming here and sitting with you, my fellow spoilers, you have yet again spoiled it for me because I thought it was an ongoing.
Same.
This definitely. So She-Hulk is appears mainly. She doesn't have her own book, so she appears mainly in Avengers.
Right.
So reading this, you're thinking like, oh, it's an Avenger character getting a little one shot. But when this is collected, I can guarantee you it's going to be along with Immortal Hulk. This is much more of a book. This is much more of an issue of the Immortal Hulk because it's pulling Jennifer into the continuity of that book. Like the whole conceit that Hulks are immortal and when they get killed, they just kind of come back in a different way. This just kind of is it's almost retconning her deaths in continuity to be a part of that continuity. So this really is an Immortal Hulk issue. Yeah.
But to Lan's and everybody's point, really, it also ends in such a way that it's like we've set up the new status quo and introduced a thing that she doesn't know about it that she's wrong about.
It's a new status quo. It's a new status quo for the Immortal Hulk book because it's the way that it's done. It's all Hulks now. If they get killed,
that's it.
Can't die because he closed the door. Yeah.
Then why not advertise this book then like they do everything freaking Avengers or X-Men and say Immortal Hulk : Immortal She-Hulk. Then you know exactly what this is a part of.
Immortal Hulk : Immortal She-Hulk : the immortality.
Yeah.
And I was about to take issue with the fact that at the end there was no follow She-Hulk in the pages of blank. But I'm an idiot. There is one. Gammagrams. For more She-Hulk, check out Avengers 36, Immortal Hulk 38, the Empire trade paperback, and Immortal Hulk The Threshing Place. So they have, at the end, told you where, I guess, to go next. Yeah. But, man, this is really disappointing for me. I was fully prepared to just read issue 2 now. But
yeah, me too.
You mentioned the art, Len. Mm-hmm. The last time I saw this artist, John Davis Hunt, he did all 24 issues of The Wildstorm. Which I tentatively it was really, really good and I loved it and I read all of it, but it's hard to suggest because it's a Warren Ellis book and it's very recent. Yeah. But his art is great and I loved it. Being watching him do a spy book with all kinds of a superhero spy book was so good because it's hyper detailed but not really.
Yeah,
it's really good and very grotesque.
Wow, bummer. Anyway, sorry.
I really liked it. It felt like part recap, part setup. So I didn't quite understand what was going on. But as far as the new take and everything, I really liked it. I grew up when she was getting bounced back and forth between. The burn arrow when she's getting bounced back and forth between the Avengers and Fantastic Four. Mm-hmm. Maybe because I was a kid and I was impressionable, it just kind of cemented in my view the way he drew her, which I didn't have a problem with. I just had a problem with the skeezy situations that he would put her in. Like she'd be begging for her life like a slave when she was on a starship one time, and that used to.
My favorite is when she was, I believe she was jumping rope nude.
Yeah, well, I didn't even. No. See, there's some things the second that they enters my eyesight, I'm just like, no, I don't even go there. I don't even. Yeah. So sometimes I'll when I'd be reading through an issue, I'd get hit with something I wasn't expecting. So that's the kind of things I'm looking for. So I don't know. I like this new take. The last time I checked in a few years ago, they were playing it for comedy purposes. So I don't know. It's kind of just blindsided me a little bit, but yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. Yeah. Dan Slott's run was very. I didn't think that who it was where she was down the hall from Howard the Duck, I think, and when they used when she would go to court to set precedents,
they
would use actual back issues of comic books.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah,
it's like this happened in issue blank of this run, and they were like, "Ah, yes, admissible."
He made her like lawyer supreme, also like a universal lawyer and shit. Like, yeah, he just did. It was all jokes, good jokes, but just jokes.
Yeah, I mean, he was trying to, in his defense, he was trying to. Byrne had kind of like cemented She-Hulk to a degree as a comedic character, so he was trying to return to that, but tried to do something different with it, and I think he did. I like in that this setup kind of like ignores almost all of that and doesn't even really touch on it. And going through her backstory, which is fine because it almost kind of lived in a universe of Marvel in and to itself anyway. Yeah. So I dug it. I liked a little bit of this explanation in that, you know, her and Thor have had a little bit of a relationship in Avengers. So I liked that those two talking to one another, and he even recognizing, hey, if you want to have this conversation, are you sure you want to have it as Hulk? Do you want to have it as Jennifer, where we can kind of maybe more talk on on the same playing field? I even kind of like that familiarity that they have with each other.
Same.
They're straight up dating, and it was a conversation at like the second date of her being like, "Who do you think you're dating, Jennifer or Hulk?" and blah blah blah. It's actually a really good issue.
And he was like, "Both."
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
I love a good history of a character comic, like a one shot. You know, like this was, and I think this was a great example of it too. I can find them to be real pleasant reads when you get like just sort of an overview of their situation, and you know, and I'll fifth in on the art there that it was it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think like it too.
Saint Saucy actually mentioned it reminds him of Dylan, but I don't know. I guess a little bit like more. I would on the spectrum of quietly to Dylan. I think it's closer to quietly in like the line work.
Yeah.
A little bit of Juan Jose Rip as well.
Yeah.
The little Allred coloring. Oh, I like also
every other artist.
I really like the cheap shots she was taking at Tony Stark.
I did too.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's a good point. What is another artist?
Jelliston from Twitch. He's watching us on Twitch right now. It says she emits radiation. She gives people cancer. Can she emit enough radiation to make more Hulks?
It's an excellent question.
I don't think so. Not to any of our knowledge thus far. The last time that they've kind of addressed her power issues was back in, I think, like the War of the Realms tie-in issues for Avengers. So it hasn't really progressed since then. I don't know how they're going to use it, but they pretty much set her up, her new status quo up as like a weapon. You know, I think it was, what was it? Daredevil had the sword.
Yeah.
He had the sight of Allfather or something. So he pretty much told her future, and part of it was, you know, you're going to be the key of a thing, and it's going to be big and bad, and you're not going to make it. So he foretold her death for the most part.
Yeah.
He had the sight of Heimdall, right?
Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's move on.
What do we got?
To Dark Knight's Death Metal, Speed Metal, #1. Joshua Williamson with art by Eddie Barrows. It's the drag race? It's the drag race from hell, taking place after the events of Dark Knight's Death Metal #3. The Darkest Night is after Wally West and his Dr. Manhattan powers. Thankfully, Wally has backup in the form of Barry Allen, Jay Garrick, and Wallace West. It's a knockdown, drag-out race through the wastelands as the Flash family tries to stay steps ahead of the Darkest Night and his Lightning Knights. I didn't realize they were called Lightning Knights. Did they just make this stuff up for the
one and only place that they are referred to as Lightning Knights?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay. So with Dark Knight's Death Metal, each issue has had a huge impact on the series itself, and then the one shot that came out last week was called.
Was that Trinity Crisis?
Yeah. No.
No.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yes, Trinity Crisis, which I think we all agreed should have been issue 4 of Dark Knight's Death Metal because it's very important. This one, I would say, not as important at all. I don't think anything really changes within the confines of this one shot between one issue and another of Dark Knight's Death Metal. However, being a huge Flash fan and a huge Wally West fan, I was very happy to hang out with these characters and spend time with them and sort of the character work that was going on between them. I think if you are reading Dark Knight's Death Metal, you could probably skip this one unless you're a big Flash fan. I don't think there's anything in here that you absolutely need as part of the series so far. It might play a big part later. Can't promise that. But that's sort of my takeaway on it. And it was really nice to see Eddie Barrows, because with Wally West books recently, I've been getting a lot of art from a gentleman I don't really like his work as much, Brett Booth. So seeing Eddie Barrows draw these characters was a huge relief. What did you guys think of it? Pink, did you read?
I read it. I read everything, but
great.
I have no idea what the hell is going on.
Oh,
Because
right.
I have been reading these. It was a little batshit for me. Like the Batman who laughs, I don't understand what's going on there. Having said all of that, I dug the interplay between the Flashes, the little conflict and the resolution at the end. I really like that.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot of memories wrapped around all four. I had no idea who any of the characters at the end were. So
the extended Flash family, right?
Yeah, I did recognize. I other than a bunch of old 60s and 70s issues, I grew up with issue 1 of Wally coming into his own with the red suit on forward, that whole run. That's Flash for me. So then anything after that, I get a little wobbly on at the end there. But I really liked it, and I really liked his blue suit.
Oh yeah, he's got the powers of Dr. Manhattan now.
I think that this was like a issue 4B. Like, I don't think that it was completely irrelevant, because it was a main point in issue 3 of Death Metal that the 3 Flashes were going to, or the 4 Flashes were running, and then we left them alone completely. So this wasn't like a uber irrelevant cutscene. I thought it was a little bit more than that.
Do you think that something changed between the beginning of this issue and the last of this issue?
Yeah, so like they were just running away, and this gave them like the step for the next. Like the idea that everyone was pulled into, everyone that is Speed Force adjacent was pulled into the Speed Force for whatever, like as a Deus Ex Machina for later, and that's how the book is left. Yeah, I do think that that's going to come into play.
Fair enough, Brian.
They needed that Mobius chair, and I think the one issue with it is I don't remember them needing to reobtain that Mobius chair from the main series, right? But they may have mentioned that, right? They may have mentioned that, but it certainly didn't hit home. And so something was accomplished that I think is important to the overall story. We just didn't realize that it needed to be accomplished. And so that was, but it had to be done, regardless of our.
Well, I don't think I think that all of everything that was accomplished here, the Speed Force stuff, gaining the Mobius chair, all of the, Wally's the leader right now, let it go.
Yeah.
All of that being accomplished, I don't think that it was set up that it needed to be accomplished, but I do think that it's going to play into later issues of Death Metal.
I agree. I mean, we know that Wally's position is important in Death Metal. We just didn't know that they didn't have access to the chair or whatever. I think it will play a big part in it. And also they were being chased. I also love, like you said, JD, like just getting to see those characters interact, Jay Garrick interacting with everybody at last, after a long time of not being around. That was cool. Their death metal-y kind of costume. That was fun.
I don't know if it humors me or upsets me, but as soon as like the idea of DC Universe's like impression of like we're gonna go dark now is to just make them like edgelord with spikes, I think is fucking hilarious.
See, I thought it was like 80s influenced, which normally I'm not too into, but I was like, oh, this is kind of cool aesthetic for this story.
No, I mean it was more like Paul Stanley kissed the fact that Jay Garrick had a lightning bolt painted across his face.
Yeah,
it's stupid. It's enjoyable, but it's dumb.
Yeah, that particular scene, I found myself going, Why? Why did this happen? What is this effect? How does this change anything? Like, I don't.
Because the darkness was infecting them.
I
Also,
guess.
Speaking of costumes, I mean, we get the classic Wally West costume makes an appearance.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I loved all his stuff. It was awesome.
I did have a tiny little nitpick as far as Wally West getting that costume back. Is that the last time Wally West had a Flash costume, it was slightly different than Barry's costume in that the nose went down instead of like being cut upwards. He had like more of a Batman cowl nose, and it was a darker red. And I just kind of felt like they went through all that trouble to differentiate the two different Flash costumes recently, as recently as Flash Rebirth, and they just sort of like skipped it.
Well, I think I don't think this is a costume that he would end up with, just judging by the fact that even at the end of this issue, he's coming back to the blue. I think that was just like pretty much his classic, like his first costume change. He had like the white eyes and
after issue 50. Yeah.
And so he was doing that to himself. I think that was like a self-image kind of thing. Gotcha. Also the speed equation of Johnny Quick, the speed,
that's cool,
which I always thought was cool. Did you guys notice they altered it a little bit?
No.
Slightly. Yeah, it's longer.
NYZ 4A equals question mark. They added in the equals question mark to the formula. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't notice that.
Where'd it go? Did it happen already? Oh, it happened. I missed it. Pink, I'm sorry. I cut you off. What were you going to say?
Well, you're talking earlier about the bolt painted on his face, and you guys are going off about that. Is it so stupid that it loops around and becomes cool again, or is it just still stupid?
Oh, for Wally or for Jay? I thought it was so like end result net positive. I thought it was funny and cool, but the story reason that like the dark universe is infecting them and it just turns them into like hair metal groupies. I thought it was stupid and I hated it. But as it went on, I was just like, this is fine. It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even realize he had face paint until this scene, and I was like, "Oh, he's got a lightning bolt paint on his face. That's dumb."
It's just like, hey, Jay Garrick,
better without. But
hey, Jay Garrick, the purest character in all of these books. Like, I mean, he needs more spikes.
Well, maybe that's the dark universe is seeping in, and this is Jay Garrick's version of what darkness.
Yeah, again, it's DC's way of being like, look, we're gonna make them dark, and it really just makes them edgelord, and it's silly. Yeah. But I read this and I immediately thought of Brian and JD like, ooh, it's not a sucky Flash book.
And it's by Joshua Williamson. I was surprised because he's been writing the Flash for the past however many years, and I haven't cared about it. But when he does these little one shots, I'm like, oh, that's good. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it was not. I'm a sucker for this. When all these Flash family members show up and stuff. Oh man! Except for these friggin' kids. Kill these kids.
Oh, those kids. Maybe they can age real quick. They did it once already. Then they would just be his adult children who live somewhere else.
Can somebody isolate that? Except these kids. Kill these kids.
Yeah.
Isolate that audio.
That'd be
No
a
context.
Context quote.
Yeah.
But especially on this occasion, JD, like it's always fun to see the Flash family get together. But this is like they all exist again, and they know each other and remember each other, and hopefully are back going forward. Hopefully.
Yeah, I'm hoping that this. Well, also, okay, so I forgot that Linda knows who he is again.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that. So there was something that happened in the unreleased Free Comic Book Day that was eventually released as part of the trade for that, but I didn't read it, and I get the sense that might have had something to do.
Okay.
No, I think like they even say it in this. All of these people were pulled into the Speed Force from different universes and time frames and stuff. So I think this is OG Linda and the kids.
Okay.
Like they were all kind of, because the whole thing about all this is that everything matters. Everything has happened. Everything on every Earth counts. So I think they were pulled from whatever continuity that they wanted to be pulled, like that the writer wanted them to be pulled from. So this is Linda, the kids, Max Mercury, all of them.
Cool.
Carol K is watching from YouTube, but she said hello, so I just wanted to say hi back.
Wow.
And Action Figure Expert says, how and why did a Flash get Dr. Manhattan's powers? Who wants to field this one as quickly as possible? Brian?
Yeah, I was gonna ask that, but then I decided not to.
You see, it was Tempest Fugonaut. Hey.
That fucker.
Yeah, that guy. He's always Fugonauting something. And this time, he Fugonauted Wally West. And it was essential to something at some point, which I guess is this.
This isn't an explanation.
Go through a series of trials in different universes, and ultimately, I think the Dr. Manhattan powers they weren't within him all along. It was he's forced to sit in the Mobius chair. He gets his kids back, but they're like, no, you have to go accept these powers and go off to some destiny. And so he did that, and here he is.
Manhattan's powers were or the Mobius chair was a bit of a conduit for Manhattan's powers due to rebirth stuff.
Yeah.
And Wally was kind of manipulated into sitting in it. And other people have sat in it and it has destroyed them. But the way that Wally, like his frequencies and able to, traverse other universes, he was able to just kind of almost like a tuning fork.
Yeah.
That's how.
Which is a frequent Wally West metaphor. Like when he's traveling in time, that's how he finds lightning rod. Yeah.
Let's say lightning rod, tuning fork,
But as to how Manhattan is even in the DC universe, that's another conversation, and Wikipedia probably does a much better job.
But let's find out.
Well, I mean, it's easy. At the end of Watchmen, the graphic novel, Dr. Manhattan says, hey, maybe this universe is whack. I'm going to go create my own. And so instead of, I think he tried a couple of times to create his own, and he was like, well, this sucks too. What if I go to another universe that already exists and I fiddle with it? So basically, he becomes the fiddler, and he starts fiddling with all different stuff in the DC universe, and that's how we got the New 52 and some other events like that. And that's sort of, this is all piggybacking off of that from Doomsday Clock.
Yeah.
I liked that a lot. The more I think about it, the more I liked Doomsday Clock.
Me too.
Oh, yeah.
Especially the wrap up, it's just very cool.
I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
Rob Patey, previous guest on the show, is Wally now aloof to the trials and tribulations of mankind because he knows all? So I guess what he's saying is Dr. Manhattan, because of his Dr. Manhattan intelligence, his cosmic awareness, and the way that he kind of exists in all times throughout space, or his existence, I should say, he doesn't really care about humanity or Earth or any of that stuff. But this doesn't seem to affect other people who have gotten that Dr. Manhattan power. Because I asked the same question when the Batman Who Laughs got Dr. Manhattan power and he became the Darkest Knight. And I was like, well, shouldn't he not care about this stuff anymore because these Dr. Manhattan cosmic awareness? I guess John Osterman is just kind of a dickhead.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's like the whole thing with Dr. Manhattan's abilities, or he's essentially only become a power-up. Like, they're not recreating, or Dr. Manhattan's not taking over these bodies. It's just a power-up. So, stuck a brain into a husk that has the powers of Dr. Manhattan doesn't mean that he's immediately going to become an all-seeing piece of garbage. Like, whatever.
And I also like that Wally doesn't seem to have, he doesn't have the same kind of full access to Manhattan's abilities that even the Darkest Knight has. Kind of got those powers within him, kind of thing.
He's a murderer too now, right? Wally is still a murderer.
It was an accident, and hopefully soon won't have happened.
So a mass manslaughterer,
who also hid his crimes.
Yeah,
true. But the whole universe is now completely different. Did that happen in this continuity anymore?
Oh, it happened.
I don't know if you guys remember, but in the Flash main series after Heroes in Crisis, recently it was revealed that Zoom was the one running through time and sort of whispering and trying to affect different people's decisions. So part of the reason why Wally did all that is because Zoom was whispering in his ear, sort of affecting him subconsciously.
So Iago style, just like, you could just hide the murders.
Yeah.
Ooh. Hey, what if I hide the murders?
Yeah. Ooh. What if I run back through time and then fix what happened Nah, you should hide the murders. Oh, okay, that's better.
But it still involves running through time, right?
Yeah, as long as I get to run through time, I don't care. Brandon Jackson says, this is why I don't like any DC Watchmen stuff post Doomsday Clock. I have high hopes for Rorschach, though.
That is
New Tom King series.
That is a bipolar statement. Like, I hate it, but I want this to work, but I hate it, but I want, like,
Is this the Rorschach from Doomsday?
Everything should be judged based off of if it's good or not I don't accept premise. Like, if they want to do stuff with the Watchmen universe, fucking do it. Just make it good. If it's not good, it's not good. Like,
I just hope people are liking Rorschach for the right reasons and not for the completely wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Like you see more and more of lately.
Yeah, you mean like the Fight Club dilemma?
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah, I won't derail it.
Okay. Let's move on to 10 of Swords, number 1. And that is by Jonathan Hickman with art and cover by Pepe Larraz. A tower, a mission, a gathering of armies. That's all that Diamond has to say about that book. Hopefully we have something more to say about that book. What did you guys think of it? Brian Lieb.
I'll tell you what, guys, I've been sort of background excited for this, and it's the next big thing from the Hickman run, and I was not as into it as I would have liked to have been, and it took me a while to get through it. I thought the art was murky, and that may have had something to do with it. Yeah, like, not that it was bad. It's just, like, very heavy and dark. And it just didn't move. Like, the book didn't move for me.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
The fact that this makes sense now. The fact that you were sending us grammatical nitpicks instead of, like, what you thought of the book probably was like an indicator that you were kind of boredly going through it.
Well, that was early. That was early into the book too. And I, like, multiple times I'm like, all right, here we go. And then not so much. But it's funny. I considered not reading it. Hickman refers to the Citadel as a spoke. And
this whole thing. God damn it.
I don't want to, like, relitigate it. I mean, just in general, like, your reading experience makes sense now. The fact that you, like, were nitpicking the functionality of a wheel and if the metaphor fits, as opposed to...
It's not a nitpick. It's a glaring error. But it's just reading it, I was like, that's not what a spoke is. But I don't think it affected my enjoyment of the rest of the book. I just thought it was a minor amusing.
I still maintain that he was correct, but that's all right.
The spokes are the parts in the wheel. The hub is the center. The hub is the center of the wheel. That's what the Citadel is. Even in the diagram later, it's right. It's not an axle. Are we thinking axle?
No, a spoke is unmoving. The wheel moves, the spoke moves, but the spoke is unmoving.
The spokes are part of the wheel. The round part is not the wheel. The round part and the spokes are the wheel. The whole thing is the wheel.
Yeah.
They move in relation to the hub, which is the center, the Citadel. In this metaphor.
What'd you think of the story?
It was fine. It was boring. You know?
That's it. I gotta pee. I'll be back. You guys keep going.
I don't think he's kidding. He's going to pee.
The diagram that you sent has
No. I don't care.
Hey,
I really do want to know about the story.
You brought it up.
Well, no, I brought it up as an anecdote to. I see now why you are paying more attention to the like the text in the middle of pages as opposed to that, because if you were kind of bored with the story, you'd pay a little bit more hyper attention.
I find his text to be, sometimes I skip it even. It can be boring itself, you know?
Yeah, of course.
Stuff.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the CultPop chat. This is what happens all week long between Noel and Brian, and often Brandon.
Brandon chimes in
over the minutia in the comic book pages. Please continue. I'm enjoying myself.
How'd you like the story?
See, it has minutia, but the story itself, I just was not into it. I was not too into it. I found it dragged, and I mean, I like the magic side of X-Men. I was really enjoying Excalibur. I've kind of fallen off of it. It did raise for me the question, so if all of the mutants are back, why are the older mutants who died that Apocalypse talks about, who aren't these ones, why aren't they back on Krakoa as well?
Wait, what?
Like, they can bring back all the mutants who ever lived, right? So
yeah, but those mutants on are you talking about the mutants on Arakko that were like separated?
Like, they survived, they're alive. I mean, the ones like their mother, for instance, has died.
But she died on Arakko. Like, that's
matter?
Huh?
Well,
it should matter the fact that it predates Xavier even knowing about her. The whole reason why they could resurrect anybody is like physically they can make a body, but it's that stupid helmet. Xavier he's backlogging their consciousness constantly. So if he's never met them,
it's only from people that he has met after he was aware of that in this timeline. All right, well, that's a good point.
Not even in this timeline. It's like that all happened thousands upon thousands of years ago. So what is somebody going to whisper down the lane this person that he could kind of maybe recreate? Yeah, it's the resurrection protocols are within his within his understanding, right? So only people he's ever met and been able to download.
Right.
Robert Patey wants to know exactly what is the story of 10 of Swords. So can you give us a 30-second pitch on exactly what is the story of this issue?
I think I might be able to, unless Pink wants to try.
Well, since you're more familiar with what's gone on before this issue, you probably should. But just really quickly, Brian's right. The spoke analogy is wrong. But having said that, I loved this book. I loved the art. I loved all of it. But you give the synopsis.
I guess does everybody remember Krakoa making sex with another island?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Arakko.
Yeah.
No.
So there's Krakoa is a sentient island. Apparently, they have a twin. That twin is the island of Arakko.
They were originally one island and split into two.
Forever ago, they were one island, which was Okaro, I think it was, right? Or something like that.
Yeah.
And on this land, ancient times was actually where Apocalypse's kingdom was, and the original mutants, and he had children and all this stuff. It was a original gateway to Otherworld. Shit happened. They split. The access to that world was lost, and now because those two islands have found each other again, Apocalypse made a gate to Otherworld through it, which is what the islands wanted. Now they kind of open themselves up to angry races that want to destroy the world outside of Otherworld, right? But it's the Starling Citadel has kind of created this level of combat to decide, almost just like a trial by combat, where it's 10 warriors, 10 swords on each side, and that will decide whether this faction can step outside into Krakoa and Akaro to take over the world. So the X-Men are essentially fighting the best warriors of Arakko with these magic swords to stop the world from being destroyed, or the universe, I think, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so with that,
it sets up a Royal Rumble, but unlike so many other times I've seen it done, it's not stupid. It doesn't feel stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that what you appreciated most about it, Pink?
No, I appreciate it because it weirdly felt like as if it felt as if Tolkien wrote an X-Men book. I don't know. I just really liked it. It was
cool.
It was weird, like high fantasy. I really love the art. I'm kind of blown away that Brian reacted to it the way he did. I loved it.
Same.
Yeah. I like the art in the individual I like it. It looks good. I just didn't. I felt like bogged down by it as a sequential kind of story thing.
Oh man, I could look at this book all day. I think it's great. I think it's really
When
well
the
illustrated.
Magistrix came down, she turned Anubis into a Funko Pop on page 58.
That was so awesome. Yeah. His head stayed big, but the body was little. It was awesome. Pink, did you read Powers of X and House of X, Powers of 10?
No,
you should. If you like the style of this.
The like She-Hulk was like a weird recap, but it was kind of a story. Okay. Flash, I was walking in on the final scene of the final episode of a TV series I haven't been watching. Yeah. This, despite not reading anything up to it, I felt like I understood everything I needed to understand. I was sucked right in. I felt like I got a complete story. It left me wanting the next issue. I love this.
Nice.
I really think that you would enjoy Hoxpox just as a 12-issue kind of the new status quo on these islands and the protocols, because it's done in this exact style and actually with this artist, and RB Silva.
I felt sympathy for Apocalypse. I felt sucker punched when that happened. I don't know. I really like this book.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Noel. You should definitely read House of X Powers of 10. It was 2 6-issue miniseries, all by the same creative team, Jonathan Hickman, RB Silva, and Pepe Larraz, who drew this book. And it sets up the new status quo for all of the X-Men books moving forward for the next couple of years. And it is probably the best X-Men story I've read since, like, the Grant Morrison and what's his nuts?
Quietly.
Well, I was going to say also Joss Whedon's run I liked as well.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I'm glad that Noel took a second to explain what actually happened in this issue, because I wasn't 100% certain.
I probably got a couple things wrong.
As with a lot of Hickman stuff, I read it and then I read it again, and I still feel like I'm missing something, and I always have trouble like melting down the Hickman plot to like its essential beats, because there's so much going on that I always need someone to be like, 1, 2, 3. Here's what happened. I'm like, oh, okay, great. But yeah, I really enjoy it. It's a kind of work that, some comics feel like work and it's a problem. The Hickman X-Men stuff is work to me, but it feels good. You know what I mean? And also, I was trying to find that page with
the diagrams. The diagrams reminded me of Emmanuel the Plains from D&D or something. I really appreciated them, but they weren't necessary. I don't know. I really liked them.
That's a big thing that Hickman does with a lot of his comics.
And it's been a style in every single X-Men comic book since Hoxpox. They all have interstitials. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love the fact that they brought back Sword.
The thing is
on the nose that it's a book about swords that they bring back Sword, and I'm like, shit, duh.
I clapped at the end when I got to the end reveal. I went, oh, god damn it, Hickman. So anyone who doesn't know, SHIELD in the Marvel universe is an Earth-based sort of protection plan, right? It's above all the governments, and it's there to protect the Earth from superhuman threats and what have you, espionage, all that. And I think, was it Joss Whedon who created Sword?
It was it was Joss Whedon and Kieran Gillen, because it was introduced in the Astonishing X-Men run.
Exactly. So which also it works well. You've got SHIELD, but you've also got Sword, and Sword is the sort of space version of SHIELD. They hang up in a satellite, like I guess the Justice League, and they're to protect the Earth against extra universal threats, I guess.
I'm looking up the acronym.
Sentient World. Brandon Jackson has defined it for us.
There you go.
World Observation and Response Department, which is actually a very sensible acronym. They really did a good job wanting to call it Sword and coming up with something that isn't much of a stretch at all. Yeah.
One of my favorite bits from one of the Marvel movies is someone's talking about SHIELD and what it actually means. And someone goes, oh, it sounds like you really wanted that to spell shield.
Right.
The fact that this is the 10 of Swords and they bring in the actual Sword program, I was like, that's adorable. I love it. I guess we'll move on.
Well, the issues toward the end, it sets up the chapters. I think there's 11 chapters total, and I saw one of the issues coming up as a Wolverine issue, which immediately made me think of the She-Hulk issue that we just reviewed, and that scene that when he showed up, I was just kind of
It's
that scene kind of fell flat for me. So
those 11 chapters is just the first half. This is a 22 chapter story. Yeah.
I saw that on the cover too, and I was like, oh. Oof. So that, I think, colored my whole outlook on this book going into it, because that is a lot of chapters. And
across so many different books too.
Yeah. It was. And also it didn't, Hoxbox was good, and then I thought that all the X books were going to continue that story. And they haven't as much as I thought they were going to. And so I think I was just kind of like, this is a lot.
That actually came up in here. They were talking at the Quiet Council. They were talking about all the threats that they're facing. Mm-hmm. And what was it, Nightcrawler? That was just like, oh, and Orcus. Don't forget Orcus. Because the last time we even heard of that organization was during Hoxbox. So it's like, it was a subtle reminder of like, I haven't even started.
Yeah, I also looked down my nose at 22 parts of a story. I'm not entirely sure that that's the best use of the X-Men right now. 22 issue crossover event through all of the books. I think there are too many X-Men books as it is, and this does not make, like, for some people they'll eat it up. I have a couple customers who are like, give me all 22, I'm in. I've only been reading one X-Men book, but just give me all of 10 of Swords. But I think for a lot of people it's a turnoff, me included. I think most of the people on this podcast included, that 22 parts is a bit hefty. But I still enjoyed this first issue, and I'm going to continue reading this, so we'll see how it winds up, I guess.
I mean, better the X-Men be into a universe almost unto themselves and able to have their own storylines, their own kind of like continuity, as opposed to this being down. We've got to see how this affects the Fantastic Four and the Avengers and everything like that, you know? And it probably will read much like these things do. There'll be certain ones, like if you're following everyone, great, and you'll catch every nuance that these different artists and writers have to bring to you. But there'll probably be certain books that you probably don't need to read. Like, to Pink's point, the Wolverine issue, I very seriously doubt that anything super substantial is going to happen in the Wolverine book that won't be referenced or reiterated in another one of the books, so that you have to buy the Wolverine book. You know,
guys, point of fact, the Wolverine one, though, I think is a terrible example, because I think that one's probably going to matter more than others, because they both factions of teams mention the Muramasa sword as one of the swords they have to collect. So I actually think that the Wolverine, because that's the sword, that's the sword that could kill Wolverine. Like, that's his sword. Mm-hmm. I actually think that book, over most of them, is probably going to have its own separate conflict that ties into the whole issue, or to the whole thing, if it's going to be also like a red herring kind of, or sorry, a
MacGuffin.
Yeah, a big MacGuffin chase for that one sword between two factions.
But that itself is kind of an issue with it. Like, these aren't tie-in books; these are enumerated.
These are chapters. Yeah,
and so if you don't realize that, if you were at Len walking in the comic store and you're like, I'm not going to get Wolverine, and you don't realize it's a big issue, but then you're upset that you didn't get it, rather than like a concise event that has tie-in issues, that then we won't read. Which is why they don't do it.
Who was that? Rob Patey says 22 issues is fine over 3 years.
Yeah. Rob, that's what I was going to ask. Is the pacing schedule that they set up, is that typical now? It's like spamming them at you like 4 a week or something?
It's not usually this bad.
It's usually
pretty brisk schedule they've set up there.
Yeah, at most it's usually like bi-weekly, which is relatively manageable, especially if you're enjoying it. But yeah, like they're setting this, the publishing schedule for this is, as you saw, like in the back of the book, is like 4 books on 1 week, 4 books another week. Like, they're going to have this done by November, but it's going to be like you said, spamming. It's going to be a deluge of X-Men books that you have to read in this order in your inbox.
There are people out of work.
I'll tell you about it, though. The thing I like about it is that it'll be easy to figure out which book you read when. They're all numbered.
Yeah.
You know, as opposed to things like Dark Knight's Death Metal, where it's Dark Knight's Death Metal 1, 2, and 3, and then a bunch of one-shots. If you lose track of that in the reading order, you're kind of screwed. Christopher St. Saucy asked, did you read my email about this? And if Chris, if you're talking about the email you sent after we start this show today, no. If you sent an email before that, I didn't see it. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I missed it. COVID messed with the schedule, says Brent. Oh, all right. So maybe it wasn't supposed to be so many a month, but COVID messed with the schedule. And so they're just like splurting them out at you.
Yeah.
Catch. I would like it. I would rather read them all at once rather than having it spread out over an entire summer and fall. He's asking if I read the email he sent after we started the show. No, I did not. We will talk about that next week.
I'm just watching Len.
So we are done with that book. Let's move on to our final of the weekly releases before we get on to our book club review of Eternals, the trade paperback by Neil Gaiman and JR. This book is An Unkindness of Ravens by Dan Panosian and Mariana Ignazi. Not all witches burned during the Salem witch trials, and the ones that survived did so together. Now, generations later, their descendants protected the ancient secrets entrusted to them. They call themselves the Ravens.
Wow.
Wilma is a new girl in school, and she plans to go completely unnoticed, except that she bears an eerie resemblance to the Raven member Waverly, and Waverly just went missing. There are 2 more paragraphs of a descriptor that I'm not going to read. Let's just talk about the book.
Oh, JD, may I, before we jump into the thoughts, the reason it's An Unkindness of Ravens, I believe, is that is the name for a group of ravens, like Pride of Lions or a Murder of Crows. An Unkindness of Ravens. Yes.
Really?
Yeah. There was a fad, I think, in like the 1800s or whenever, of just like coming up with those names, and I believe that's one of them. They're very cool.
Murder of Crows, Flock of Birds, Unkindness of Ravens.
Yeah. There's all kinds of that animal. Yeah.
A crotch of car salesman.
Pink for the win.
Can we come up with some for like toxic douches on the internet? Like, not right now, but let's come up with our own terminology.
Right. Email us at cultpopgo@gmail.com and let us know what you think a gathering of toxic fanboys would be. So I am a big fan of like spooky October spooky time books, witches and all sorts of different horror characters, I guess. Not that witches are horror characters, although sometimes they are. Anyway, so I was excited to read this, and I thought it was pretty solid. It's got a bunch of different elements that I really enjoy. It's got, fish out of water tale. You've got high school drama, a little bit of the Mean Girls mixed with The Craft, 2 movies I enjoy. So, yeah, I really enjoyed this book. And, Boom Studios is really doing a bang-up job putting out books that I care about this past couple of years. They've really stepped up their game as far as I'm concerned. So I'm just curious to hear what you guys have to say about it. Pink Apocalypse, let us know.
It was okay. I mean, it was well written. I like the interior art. I don't like the cover. I hate switcheroos, by the way. I hate it when the cover art doesn't but it was it was a tween book. It felt like a book for tweens. I mean, it wasn't gritty enough to hold an adult's attention per se. I for at least in my opinion, I don't know. It was good.
I'm feeling personally attacked. That's cool.
Yeah. I think that's what it was meant too. I felt the same way.
Yeah.
You felt the same way that JD's being personally attacked, or that this wasn't written for adults?
No, that you were being personally attacked.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I feel the same. I feel the same way that it wasn't. It was just fine. that I didn't feel the audience, like I wasn't the audience for it. Maybe I will be in the issue 2, but this was all just really good interior art, a lot of introductory stuff, and cute. And that's great. But I was like, all right, cool.
I actually did also.
There's a couple of young teens that I could think of that I would recommend it to, but is it something I would read, not keep reading? Not necessarily, no.
I had sort of a synthesis of those opinions. Like, I did feel like it was, it wasn't too heavy. It was, and the art style, I think, contributed to that. And it's, but I also enjoyed it. Like, I enjoyed the ride. I liked the design element of she kind of comes off as the leader of the Ravens, where her eye patch has a sideways smiley face, which I thought was cool. Maybe like an old school texting kind of thing, which didn't occur to me until right now as I was talking about it. But it was fun, and I like the conflict that's been set up. These two groups both want her to be part of them, and the last page reveal was a little cool magic-y stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I thought the magic-y reveal could have been a little more stronger. I think the end was just like, oh, it's over. Oh, okay. I guess.
But yeah, the book didn't end. It just fell off a cliff. Like,
that's true.
Mid-scene, and that left me a little colder than anything else. Like, if they would have left with like an actual story crumb, as opposed to look at those people you don't know. It's like, all right, that's cool.
I think my problem is that the reveal is, ooh, them doing magic. But like, we already saw them. We know that they're related to magic because they leave a magical spell in her locker, which spells out "Meet us here later." So like, we already know that magic is involved. So seeing the Ravens are magical was not a reveal.
Yeah. Yeah, and that final scene where the lead character, she says, "I see everything," but there's no real. So you're just standing there. We don't see you seeing everything, So it's not really detailing anything like that. It's not really dynamic in a way that ends. So that's the other reason why it just feels like like, oh my God, like somebody ripped out the last 9 pages of this book because this can't be where it ends. But it did. But that being said, though, I recognize, like everybody, this is not for us. This is not for the 30, 40, 50-year-old, comic book reader. I don't think that's the audience. It's done well enough that you can appreciate the quality of it. Yeah. But I think that if you are a fan, and let's face it, in the 21st century right now, a lot of people's introductions into the world of comic books are not coming by way of comic books. They're coming by way of comic book properties that they are falling in love with. So if you are a fan of Riverdale or Sabrina show on Netflix or something like that, especially with both of those shows seemingly, I think, about to be coming shortly towards their end, and you are going to the comic book shops, it's like, oh, I heard these are comic book properties. Let me see if their books are in there, and then you may be looking for something along those lines. I think that this book will fit for you. I think that, to Pink's point, the change up from the cover art to the interior art may leave you a little cold, depending on which side of the fence you fall on, as opposed to which art style you enjoy. But if you're able to get past that, I think it is enough of a story that you may be intrigued to buy more. Yes, I feel like this probably should have been a 30, 35 page book so that they could have actually finished a first introductory story. Sure. But the quality is enough there that I think that the reader the audience that I think it's going for will be attracted to it and pick it up and enjoy it.
You go ahead.
No, I'm pointing at you.
Oh, very good. I also really like I forget her name, the lead character's
Waverly?
Yeah. Her character development, I think, is very well done. I mean, she's a new girl in school, which is almost an archetype. but somebody who travels around kind of thing. But I think they do it in a good way. I liked the karate move that Dan, a little while later, you find out she doesn't know karate, which was very cool. And I just think they make her a pretty rich character in this one episode. And honestly, I didn't even notice the kind of light on the magic part for a story about magic, because I guess you get that build up in the beginning, and it didn't hit me as an issue. I thought by the last page, I was like, here we go. All right, good to go. I didn't get that cliff thing that you guys felt.
Well, yeah, it wasn't until. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Nope.
It wasn't until Len kind of mentioned that it's almost like 9 pages are missing, and it clicked for me. Like what this felt like was reading a preview issue in previews. Like they just show you up to the turn, but usually in the book when you read it, there's another like 4 pages that kind of actually tell you what the turn is and why it's important before leaving.
I thought the dynamic,
this was just like
I thought the dynamic of those two groups, and you don't know which one or both, like do they both do magic or whatever. I thought that was introduced with, not resolved, but like the introduction of it was resolved. So I think I'll focus on that more.
All of the pieces are there. Like everything is competent and well. Just the way that it was organized for me felt like a fall off a cliff as opposed to a teaser for next. It was just like, oh, okay.
Okay. I did want to mention, I've noticed that, about 10 years ago, the zeitgeist was zombies. And I feel like right now, witches are the thing. So there's a lot of witch-related tales, especially in comic books. Like right now, you can see an ad up here for Faithless 2 by Brian Azzarello. There's just a lot of witch books out right now. And I know a lot of people who really like witches. So if you're one of those people, I would say you could toss this in your bin as well.
I've only got a few relatives, but one of them is a cousin I'm really close to, and she's been a practicing witch for 12 years, and she's observed that there is this weird dramatic rise in interest in witchcraft and people she's running into, and she can't explain it. She doesn't understand where it's coming from.
Over what period of time, do you know? Like how long back?
She would say over the last few years.
Yep.
She said it's very strange. She doesn't understand where all the sudden interest is coming from.
Yeah, another good one is Black Magic by Greg Rucka.
Yeah, that's fantastic. But also this week, the Autumnal was a witch book.
Yeah.
So
the same way we were a while ago, we were getting a lot of sci-fi books, we were getting a lot of fantasy books, a lot of zombie books. I think this is the next wave is the occult. Even if you take a look back to about 20 minutes ago when we were talking about Ten of Swords. Ten of Swords is a reference to tarot cards, and even Otherworld is a land of magic. So even in our mainstream comics, we're getting some occult stuff.
Even in, it's kind of tangential, but the new HBO Max, Raised by Wolves, very sci-fi story, but just had a tarot mention. It's not witches, but I just thought it was an interesting piece of data.
Oh, and Rob Patey says Snyder's Witches, he spelled it wrong. It's Wytches, was really good. Scott Snyder and Jock did a nice little standalone. It's almost like just a really solid horror movie. It's in and out. You're done. It's really, really good. Highly recommended.
If only we could point to something that happened over the last few years that seemed to turn the world on its head.
I was
impossible.
Yeah. You mean like to kind of reintroduce otherworldly ways of taking control of what seems uncontrollable?
Yeah, exactly.
No, I can't think of anything.
Nope. Needs more fuel.
I can't think of anything.
All right, let's move on to the book club section of the show where we talk about Eternals from Neil Gaiman and art by John Romita Jr. During the 1970s, comics legend Jack King Kirby returned to the House of Ideas with perhaps his biggest idea of all, the universe of the Eternals. Their creation was the result of Kirby's ceaseless curiosity about the origin of man and his mythologies. But, like many of the King's concepts, it was definitely ahead of its time. Flash forward to 2006, superstar creators Neil Gaiman and John Romita Jr. have boldly taken on these concepts with a loving hand. in the process telling a fresh and crackling fun yarn full of mystery, suspense, and majestic power, all with an eye on helping establish Kirby's creations as a vital part of the Marvel Universe once and for all. Against the backdrop of Marvel's Civil War, the Eternals are awakening one by one from a strange waking dream, at once coming to terms with the fact that they are far more than the normal people they have thought themselves to be. They find there is little time to commiserate about such things, however, as they are thrust into a life and death struggle that spans both time and space.
Wow.
So, because it's coming out from Marvel as a movie in the next, I guess, decade, who knows when movies are going to start happening again, we decided to take a look at this because I personally don't know anything about the Eternals. And I was surprised to find that that would be one of their next blockbuster films. So, seemed like a good time to check it out. My personal take is that this was fine. I didn't care. I was kind of bored. Not much actually seems to happen in the story other than you've got these characters who are human and they find out that they are previously gods, these Eternals who were created by the Celestials in the Marvel Universe to protect the planet. And, you know, one by one, they're waking up and they have to go up against the, what are the bad guys called?
The Deviants.
The Deviants. Yeah. The Celestials made the 100 Eternals and then thousands of Deviants. And they've been going to war for who knows how long. And there's an interesting twist in here where we find out why they have been sort of trapped in the bodies of humans. And that was kind of interesting for a couple of pages. And then it was over. And I was glad to be done with it. I was really expecting more from Neil Gaiman. What did you think, Pink?
I really should... All I'm going to do is take a chainsaw to this book. I hated it on every level for multiple reasons, so you probably should skip me.
No, tell us why.
Yeah, what do you think?
Go.
Awful. It was like, you hear the joke some people make about baseball. It's 30 minutes of action jam-packed into 2 hours.
Yeah.
This book was like 30 pages of kind of a story jam-packed into however many pages it was. It was so boring. The art was so bad. The writing was so awful. Like, well, you should go out with him. He's rich. You know, the men with tits writing coming out of the female characters. It was just, I hated this book on every level. It was awful. It was, and it really has given me serious concern for, whereas before, because the only exposure I've had to the Eternals before was the original. It ran 2 years, I think? Not even 2 years.
I don't even think 2 years.
It was it's enough to be there was like enough material to do like one omnibus because I think it just came out or is about to come out. But yeah, like it's not long runs. They did not have a long life in publication.
But it was enough to provoke the imagination, and I would think, wow, what you could do in a movie with that. I was a naysayer when they were going to make Guardians of the Galaxy into a movie. I thought this isn't going to work.
Same.
There's no way Guardians of the Galaxy is going to work. Nobody's going to care.
I wasn't. I cared.
They don't have the name brand like Captain America or the Avengers to carry them. But I was wrong. So I'm hoping I'm also going to be wrong with the Eternals. But this book felt like it came out in the early 80s. It felt like a bad book that came out in the mid 80s maybe, and it came out 12 years ago.
You know what? You just hit it right on the head, Pink, because the whole time I was reading this, because I knew it was an older book. So in my mind, I was like, all right, I'm trying to give it some pass because,
some slack.
This book, because it probably was written like in the late 90s or something like that. But then when I realized that this was still 2007, I'm like, oh my God, this is first of all, okay, like Brandon wanted you to go off, Pink, and I know you will go off now that he's giving you a license, but allow me to go off a little bit first. Because first of all, when I pick up a book or put it on my pad and it says that there are 231 pages, then to me, I better be getting a complete fucking story, right? So when I get to the end of this 231 fucking page book, for it only to set up basically the next issue of what should have really been compressed down into one 64-page book, I am like, yo, this is total bullshit. The art is not bad. It's John Romita Jr. probably at the height of his stylistic time and probably at the best point of his stylistic moment, and it has a little bit of the best of Frank Miller comes through to me. So it's not bad. It's not great. I'll give you that. But the story is boring. It's padded. It goes on and on and on. The dialogue is stilted. There is absolutely no personality. There are points in the story that don't make no fucking sense. I don't give a fuck about any one of these motherfucking characters. The first person that comes into the book that I even give a fuck about is Yellow Jacket, and that's not until the last two fucking books, and even then he's only on fucking 2 pages. The little back and forth between him and Jan was great. Other than that, I didn't give a fuck. Tony Stark is in here. He's kind of cool, but then they run him into the ground, and then he sits there like he's just checking it out. This is bullshit. This was dumb. This was a dumb waste of a book club moment. I don't know who suggested it. I don't know who read it and enjoyed it. And God bless you if you did, but you are people that I have to question your intelligence, because this book is boring, dumb, dull, and leads to nothing. And if you believe that reading 231 pages of a book and not getting to the end of the fucking story is good writing, then shame on you. And shame on Neil Gaiman, who did 1602, which was a great book, a fantastic book. Shame on him for writing this piece of shit and saying that it is an homage to Jack Kirby. Because while Jack Kirby wasn't the greatest writer in the world, he did have fantastic, wild, imaginative ideas. And outside of the tapestry and the same title, none of that is on display in this book to me.
There is only one time that I was enjoying what was happening, and it's literally when Iron Man comes bursting through the wall like that. With like, he's not making an action pose. He's literally just
walking through.
He's just sliding himself through the building without really like, he's not posing. He's not flexing. He's not like flying in like this. He's just like, boosh, I'm here. That's the only time I was like, oh, that's pretty dope.
It's a cool, like, frozen in time moment too.
Yeah,
where
this
you
is
see
really
wall.
well illustrated, I think.
I'm the one that suggested this. I had never read it, so I didn't. I also thought it was boring as shit. But I, like, a couple things, absorbing everything that you guys are saying, and I'm not in disagreement at all. Comparing it though to Guardians, I also don't think is necessarily even fair. Like, when it comes to finding out that this is the next movie they're going to do, right? With Guardians, there was at least 2 or 3, like there was at least a current run that was highly regarded that people could, like, you know, nerds can hold on to. This is like the thing that they keep trying to make work.
Yeah. And
it's just not. And I had also heard that they were like, for the movie, I trust who's making the movie, and the cast is awesome. So, you know, it's hopefully it's going to be good. But I heard that they were also using this as like a reference point for the movie. This series. So I was like, hey, it would be kind of cool if we read this. And then nobody's really read it. It's Neil Gaiman. It's got creators' names that are highly regarded. It's going to become more popular, at least in understanding and knowledge over the next year. Why not? And I was super disappointed. It was crazy boring. It was for as long as it took to do anything, it explained absolutely nothing. Like, even the explanations of things were so like ethereal that it pissed me off. Like, I read everything in here, but I still don't know what the fuck the Eternals are, what they do, or how they function, other than they protect the planet. And
Well, some of them have
Deviant,
powers.
oh yeah, sorry, some of them have powers. And the Deviants, I guess, are just a fuel or like food for the Celestials. That's why there's billions of them.
Yeah. Basically, the Celestials in the past have been set up as amoral, and that's kind of looks like how they've carried it forward into this one, because the Celestials created the Eternals, and the Deviants or Changelings, however you want to see it, and their amoral nature of why they create what they create, and then the nonsensical nature of coming back for judgment later for what? Who knows? Since they're amoral and have no code or like to follow. I don't understand that, but
yeah. Also, too, having the two factions or creating the two factions, the Deviants and the Eternals, it's one to protect the Earth and one to facilitate a food source for them when they do come back. But the Eternals are there to protect the Earth from the Deviants running it over before they can come and just like eat all them bitches. So it's this weird like food chain thing, I guess.
Oh, I didn't get that.
I'm not entirely sure that is accurate either. There were some.
I'm not entirely sure it's accurate either.
I mean, not your read of it, but what they said. Like, there were some characters that disagreed with each other about like why they were created or what the real story was. And so I don't know if that is the case or not. I'm not sure about that.
It took me a week and a half to read this because I kept putting it down and I only read a chapter at a time because it was so very boring. And the way that it was structured too was really upsetting. Like, it was 5 issues of a lot of setup, and then you roll into the 6th chapter and it's like, okay, things are coming to a head. Maybe they're just gonna like bow it all up and it'll be kind of cool. It was the most anticlimactic battle ever because it was just like mind control. Hey guys, stop. We're cool now.
Yeah.
Celestial. And then it ends. And then the 7th issue was just like conflict jam-packed into this shit. Like, oh, we're gonna introduce this entire hierarchy horde of deviants in a page, and that Makari is actually a reincarnated god.
What?
It's
go ahead.
The whole story is their way of hanging on to all the continuity that came before, but doing a reset, reboot. And I guess it works for that. But to connect back what you were talking to earlier about, you were talking about Dr. Manhattan and how once you reach an elevated state of power, by the nature of psychology of power, the more powerful you become, the less concerned you are of the common people or the common experience specifically. And I can forgive like hazy, vague background origins or information. I can just kind of let that go depending on the context. But ultimately, the goals of this villain who has been around for 1 million years is he set everybody up to betray them so that he could get chicks. Literally.
You're talking about Sprite.
Wait, what was that?
I'm not even talking about Sprite yet. No, he wanted puberty. That's why he betrayed everything he's ever.
Chicks.
He just said chicks.
I'm not even talking about that yet. I'm talking about this deviant or the deviant war thing with them understanding or believing that Makari is this Skadrak messiah or god of theirs, which is something that's introduced in the 7th issue or the end of the 6th. Yeah. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Am I supposed to I need a flow chart for how, it's so boring. I need a flow chart to understand where I'm going. Cause it was.
So I had a different opinion about this book, you guys. I enjoyed it. I read it when it came out and I was like, this is pretty boring and I'm not super into it, but I really wanted to be because I love the Eternals and Neil Gaiman is great in my opinion. John Romita is an artist that I feel like is very good, but I'm not really that into, I don't know. It's a weird dichotomy. So maybe having already read the full story, not been super into it, going back and reading it all at once, I was like, oh, this is fun. I like it. I don't disagree. At the end, I was like, oh, I really want to know that, like, cool setup. I want to know that story. They did come out with it. I remember reading it, and it wasn't. It wasn't.
It was the Knopfs and Daniel Acuna.
Yeah.
It was only like 10 issues.
Yeah, it didn't really grab me, as I recall.
And I do remember in like Marvel Universe continuity, the Celestial being a part of Central Park now.
I had forgotten.
I do remember that. Yeah.
Happened. So it is not the most action-packed thing, but I guess I was into enough of the, I like super ancient history, mythology. Like, for instance, when Ike Harris is telling Mark Curry, he's like, oh, you were Osiris. You brought words to the Egyptians. And I was like, that wasn't Osiris. That was Thoth. Why would Neil Gaiman get that wrong? And then later in the book, he's like, oh, yeah, Icarus got that wrong. You were actually Thoth. And I was like, oh, that's cool. That's a nice little fun thing. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry that you guys weren't into it. I thought the whole like sprite thing, that was cool. And the grandeur of everything. You raised some good points about why did they create the Deviants or Changeling or whatever they call themselves, which is cool that they make that distinction. Why would they call themselves Deviants?
I know you didn't mean this in this way, but can I like a distinction?
Yeah.
I don't need action. I need progress.
Sure,
Yes.
sure.
There was no progress. I don't need explosions and punches. I need story progression, and there was none, and that bothered me.
Oh,
You guys have mentioned before how you in general, you guys have mentioned before how you prefer when books have a balance. They've got to have, you know what I mean? I'm actually okay with pure talky all the way through without a punch being thrown, but God, it's got to be interesting dialogue, and this was just,
Agreed.
There's got to be dialogue that moves the story along, or
when every character is stoic, this is what
I mean, I guess that just didn't bother me. That I do sometimes have a soft spot for that kind of like, we have been around for 1,000,000 years. Your struggles are so distant to us that we don't register you, kind of thing. That mindset is interesting to me, but also having read it before, I remembered what happened with Icarus, so I was just like, "Ooh, that's a cool progression. Let's see what happens." Good. Sorry.
There, I said there was only one part that I was impressed by. There was two other parts that I could remember that I was like, "Oh, that's pretty good." Basically, one of the, God damn it, the changing people is, holding someone hostage, holding the kid hostage. He's getting ready to eat him, and then Cersei goes, "There, the monster's a tree, easy peasy." And I like that she just like snaps her fingers and turns him into a tree. I thought that was pretty funny. And then later on, I think the main character, who I don't care enough to remember the name of, is talking to Giant Man. And he's basically, like, they show up ready to fight. And so he flies up and he's like, listen, there's a whole thing going on. Why don't you, instead of us fighting, how about if you just hang back for a minute? And he goes, oh, okay. And then I was like, oh, wow, we never see that in mainstream comics. And then later, he's doing it again. He goes, you're doing some sort of mind thing on me, aren't you? And he goes, yeah. And it's just like, I thought those were like clever little bits of dialogue.
I liked those parts a lot. I was also impressed with the 7th issue climax with the Sprite storyline. I was like, oh shit. Okay. Like that was the only time in the entire book that I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And
I'll give you,
it came quite late.
There was like 4 or 5 really interesting pages out of the 230 pages that was there.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just want to give those 5 pages their due.
Oh, also, what the fuck is the Unimind?
Oh, the Unimind. See, that's the other thing. I've always liked the Eternals, and the Unimind is a very weird Kirby-ish concept where they can, if there are 3 or more Eternals, they can join together in this like entity that is the Unimind. And
like
thank God they explained it in this story.
It was also pretty
at all
to the climax of like that Sprite formed a Unimind with the Celestials and all that stuff. I can't fault anyone for not already knowing what the Unimind is. You know what I mean?
I mean, they talk about it like, no, you're the asshole for not understanding what happened before. Like,
right. Yeah,
this is a reboot after 30 years of no publication.
Right.
Give me something.
It's also a very strange concept. Like, you've got the Eternals who each have their own abilities, but separate from that, they can all, you know.
I felt like, God.
What?
I'm getting riled up. I felt like I needed an appendices of references in order to even barely understand or enjoy what the fuck was happening in this.
Well, the problem is that they couldn't properly reference it because what it is, actually, the Unimind is Kirby cribbing from himself because it's him taking his forever people from DC that used to join together to create, I forget, they created like some big Unicron looking type of creature and everything like that. So that they can't put a reference, see DC's forever people, so that you can know exactly what the Unimind is.
Yeah.
You know what was perfect in this book?
Mm.
And I, like, while reading it, I was just like, God, I fucking love this. All the lettering was amazing.
Ah, excellent.
Even the way that they did languages in a different font with that, like, all the lettering was fucking awesome. Because I loved speaking Russian, right?
I love the way they were doing the Russian font.
Yeah.
I was like, that's clever, that's great. And then as the book went on, I'm like, okay, it's getting hard to read now, you know?
That's true. That's because your eyes were glazing over. That's why.
Yeah. If it was more interesting to read, I don't think it would be that much of a barrier.
Would you guys put reactions? It seems like it would be the kind of thing that would tickle you folks. The reactions of the kind of tourists and everybody to the Celestial at the end. You know. Yeah. It does seem kind of like, All right. Very good.
I like the dummies not understanding that a rare metal is probably more valuable than gold. I thought was hilarious.
Right.
But again,
it's a sucker for a Messiah story too. Not that this was one, but it introduces one, and I was like, "Oh, Makari, he's got an extra thing going on. Let's see what he's got."
Oh, yeah. What's the extra thing? That's my point. What's the extra thing?
Well,
because a deviant calls him by a name and says, "Oh, you are him." Well,
no, I mean, I think it's also the Celestial has done something. Like he said.
Oh, he speaks with it now, right?
He speaks with it now, and he included the Celestial, like when the Eternals were being created. This particular Celestial included some extra stuff in Makari that we don't know. So I think the intent was going forward to shift it as like Makari is the main character, Icarus is his friend as they go around getting the Eternals, but it just didn't take off.
Len, did you, or in general, did you guys read the first arc of Jason Aaron's Avengers run? Because I'm just going to keep bringing this run up apparently today.
Is that the one that is?
It's the final host or the first host.
I just finished reading that book.
Yeah, like it gets into it, almost retcons some of the stuff. The human race itself is a disease of the first sick host. So like a sick celestial sneezed and created human beings, and that kind of became part of the whole like celestials, deviants, and then humans in the middle. And we're literally a disease on the universe, a celestial's disease. And I thought that was even more fun.
That was more fun. That's a book that I don't think Brian would like either, because of you want to talk about murky artwork. The artwork in that is very murky. But back on this, another story bit we didn't like. You talked about the Mark Curry character or whatever. The whole who was the guy that took over the fake land, or Druid or whatever, however you said his name.
Oh yeah.
Druid.
You feel like there's this whole setup that's being made where there's going to there's going to be a butting of heads between him and the Icarus character, or maybe him and somebody of the Eternals, right? Because he seems to be like the Dark Eternal, and he more or less calls himself like the Dark Eternal. But when he shows up, he pretty much, hey guys, and now he's just Reggie Mantle in the Archie crew, who's just hanging out there and just making bad puns behind the scenes.
I think this is one of those situations where it's one of those like court intrigue kind of scenarios where they're all together, but he works against them, but they're all still Eternals. They have a certain, and they've like made a deal now where he can do his own thing. And I think he's done this before. I think it's one of those deals. This book really is setting up an Eternals ongoing status quo, but it seems as though it's an Eternals graphic novel because that's how they market and sell it. And the status quo never took off. So, like this is it really.
Yeah. I wonder what happened. I wonder if the sales on this book weren't that great or if it was just that the follow-up wasn't.
I remember reading the follow-up and not being like real excited about it ever. And
I remember this being hella late too. So it's not like it had any momentum ever. Yeah. And even the way that it's written, there's no momentum. So shit, if there was 3 months in between issues 3 and 4, I sure as shit wouldn't remember.
I know there's a new one coming from Kieran Gillen. New Eternal series with art by Asad Ribic. So, I mean, I'm not writing off the Eternals as a property just yet. Maybe this Kieran Gillen run will be the injection it needs, but this certainly wasn't it for me. I was very curious. I remember trying to read the first issue when it first came out in issues, and I didn't care, so I didn't continue with it. But I thought, oh, you know what, Neil Gaiman, I've got a better appreciation for Neil Gaiman now than I used to. Maybe this will be it, and boy, it sure wasn't.
I know this is not
Brandon says
either.
What?
This is not greatest of Neil Gaiman either.
No.
Like by any means. Yeah.
Brandon says, I agree with Brian, and I felt the same way about Sandman. This isn't an excuse, but maybe Gaiman books are just better on a second read. And Samuel David says, I also agree with Brian. I did read it more than once.
We've talked about this before. I genuinely hate that conceit. Like you need to experience it 5 times before you really get it. Like I don't like that.
That's just
if somebody has to convince me to like something, even if if I'm convincing myself to like something, something's wrong. Like
I get that it like reveals layers of itself on further readings. That's great, but the first reading being impenetrable, it's a problem, and I don't have the patience.
I also think that is a point of like. First of all, I disagree about Sandman. I've only read it once, and I think it's amazing. But that is also no author is like, well, I'm really going to get them on the second read.
No,
like,
I know.
They're going for it. And no reader is like, well, I can't say no readers like this, but if you happen to read it a second time and you enjoy it more, to say so is not like, what are you going to do? It's better on the second read. You know what I mean?
No, as an anecdotal experience, I enjoyed it more the second time is great. As fuel to get someone to keep going and or repeat, it's false. It's silly. Same thing with, I feel the same way about like, you should try this TV show. It gets really good in the 4th season. Like, why the fuck would I waste 4 seasons?
But
on time
to say like, hey, start with season 4.
I'm sorry, what Pink?
Like if it's contextual to your development or where you're at, like I've seen things when I was a kid or a teen that I've seen now decades later and I view very differently just because of age and experience, but that aside, the Eternals kind of acted as a sort of unwarranted bedrock to my sense of wonder for the Marvel Universe, probably disproportionately. Somehow they just tapped into that weird sense of like they talk about, chariots of the gods kind of, what if mythology that's always been there. That's wow, that would be so cool. And that's always kind of hovered in my mind as far as the Marvel Universe goes. I've always been fascinated by it, probably in like an unjustifiable way. And so when I went into this, I was excited and just, I hope they don't fuck it up again,
Well, you know what? I honestly too, like if you think about the relaunch with Kieran Gillen, if you think about the things that he's written or the types of stories he's written before that go hard sci-fi, but also just in equal measure go full supernatural or magic based, maybe that's the sweet spot for Eternals. Some sort of sense in the middle of all those things. But I'm definitely taking a wait and see approach. Like I like the concepts. and the ideas of these characters, but as an entry point, this I very much didn't like it.
Well, I think it's largely might just be like a force fit issue. Like toward the end, I felt like just seeing Iron Man and everything, just it's like cramming Watchmen into the DC universe. You know, they did not want the Eternals. They crammed the Eternals into the Marvel universe. You know, so it's just I don't know.
Yeah, Kirby wanted it to be separate, and then they wanted him to include the Hulk. And just for anyone who might not know, that they wanted him to include the Hulk, and he didn't want to, so he did. But it was a Hulk robot that just looked like the Marvel Comics character Hulk. And then eventually, it was like, oh yeah, they're in the Marvel universe. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
a baller move.
Was them given the double middles.
Right.
I never heard that. I like that, the double middles. That's great. Did anybody have any last words to say about the Eternals?
Give it a shot, everybody. It's pretty great.
The concept is great. You know, I don't think that this has any bearing on future Eternal stuff.
I just think this is like it wasn't the most enjoyable execution, but I don't think any of the pieces are broken. Neil Gaiman isn't shit. John Romita Jr. isn't garbage. The Eternals aren't broken. It's just this. This was not a very good sum of all its parts.
Yeah,
man, I've got to be honest with you. I haven't read any of or seen any of their other stuff, but the writing in this book and the artwork in this book, I am dumbfounded that they're considered giants.
Have you not read any Neil Gaiman?
No. And after this book, you'd almost have to hold a gun to my head to read anything else.
Damn!
You're very I would not take this as this is late comics Neil Gaiman, like 20 years after the stuff that everyone references as the greatest of Neil Gaiman things. Okay. You know,
I mean, I get it, right? Like, just as an example, like I adore George Romero. Early George Romero, but later George Romero was awful. Sure. So I get it.
Those last two movies were garbage.
Yeah. Island of the Dead or god damn it,
Diary of the Dead, and those like Land of the Dead was it was pretty good. Actually, it was better.
I would give this writer another chance, whatever you guys recommend. But this art was just awful.
Yeah.
Like, awful. I don't know. I don't get what the appeal is. I just don't.
Well, in fairness, and I might be having my timeline off a little bit because I think 1602 was about, like around 2002, 2003, something like that.
It was before this.
Oh, right. It was before. It definitely was before this. But if I remember correctly, Neil Gaiman was in a long time in this this legal dispute over his participation in the British Miracle Man comic book. And I think he also had some kind of legal dispute with Todd McFarlane too over the Angela character. Yeah. And if I remember, I might be conflating the stories a little bit. When he did 1602, part of that deal was that Marvel was going to be helping him with one or both of those legal issues. And 1602 was kind of like, all right, his way of kind of like paying back for them helping him with the legal fees for this. And I wouldn't be surprised if him continuing to play around in the Marvel toy box a little bit after that is also a part of him still kind of like paying off that debt a little bit. Doesn't mean that he didn't really enjoy the Eternals, Jack Kirby and everything like that. But I say that to say, like, I don't think he was giving it his all. I think he was basically, just having some fun. I think if you've never read Neil Gaiman, everybody praises his Sandman. I think it is some pretty good stuff, but to be fair, I didn't read it. I thought 1602 was good. Yeah. His Miracle Man work was pretty good. I have known, and to be fair, some of his actual novels that he's written I've read some excerpts from them, and they actually read very well. So I want to invite you, Pete, to at least give him a try on that level. John Romita, I could care less of whether he likes it or not. And like he's like whatever the fuck, you know. He's a dime a dozen as far as artists are concerned to me. But his father, on the other hand, is a different story.
Yeah,
but
I like his Spider-Man stuff.
I liked his JMS Spider-Man stuff. That's kind of
yeah. But that, I mean, like how long ago was that? You know,
20 years,
right?
Yeah.
So
He had kind of an odd blockiness and facial qualities. You bring up a good point about Gaiman, though. He had become a novelist for a while before he wrote Eternals. And we've talked about the difficulty in transition from people who start out as novelists and then go to comics. And I think it happens, like you get used to one style or whatever. And I don't think any of Gaiman's best stuff is superhero or sci-fi, like his best of it. You know, it's all like fantasy stuff.
Yeah.
And this is sci-fi superhero stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Pink, you may have seen a couple of his works have been turned into movies. Coraline, it was like a.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Kind of a. Oh, it's an animated. It's like a
stop motion
animated along the lines of like Nightmare Before Christmas. And then there was Stardust, which is
I like Stardust.
That's based off of his novel Stardust.
I have the book. It's actually quite good.
Yeah, we did that for a book club at a local bookshop.
You're talking about the one with Michelle Pfeiffer and Robert De Niro, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just rewatched it like 3 days ago.
Claire
I love
Danes
that
too,
movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
That's Matthew Vaughn's second flick.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Claire Danes had a kid and dropped out of acting, if I recall correctly. I don't know, but
Tyler Reynolds says Stardust was a better movie than a book.
He's right.
And then of course Rob Patey says American Gods.
Oh, it's phenomenal. Oh, and Good Omens also was recently. He co-wrote that with Terry Pratchett.
There's good stuff out there. It's just this was not it. If you guys out there in the Cult Pop land like this book, please email us at cultpopgo@gmail.com. Let us know what you thought. If you thought we all have terrible opinions, please yell at us. You can catch me on Twitter at JDsHeroComplex. You can come to my shop, JD's Hero Complex, 4327 Main Street in Philadelphia. If you want to help the show out, you can go to patreon.com/JohnnyDestructo and give us some of your money. If you don't have any of that money, if you're like me and don't have money, you can go and help the show out. If you just want to like, share, subscribe, do all the things that you do on social media to get the word out, help us get some views and clicks and, reach a wider audience to come hang out with us. Brandon says, since we're wrapping up, I just want to say it was great having Pink on. She added a cool perspective to the dynamic of the group. So, Len, where can we find you?
Hey, you can holler at me at every place, Black Tribbles, at Black Tribbles, or at the Bat Tribble on Twitter, Instagram, wherever. Holler at a Tribble. Please, please, please. And everybody be good. And it was great having you on, Pink. You were fantastic.
Thank you.
Brian, where can people find you?
Hey, I'm at BrianLeibDesign.com. And, just if you hire a private investigator or something, I'm sure they could track me down. Pink, great to have you.
Thank you.
Now 3 people have said it, so anyone that doesn't say it is a real jerk.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey!
God.
I missed everything. What were you guys talking about?
Welcome to the show, Noel.
JD was trying to convince people to finger bang his like button.
If you could enact violence on that like button, it'll help us all. You guys can find me here on the social medias, on the Facebook page, on YouTube. I'll try and be more consistent with videos, and on Twitter at Mr. Bartocci, MrBartocci. Thanks.
Nice. I removed her. There we go. Pink.
Oh God.
It's disconcerting, isn't it? When you're looking at yourself and talking.
I don't exist on social media. I've got a streaming thing, but it's not ready yet. So, yeah, I just pretty much whenever I show up here is it. So.
All right. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. So somebody, Action Figure Expert says, what? No gutter talk this week? Sorry, we are out of time. I have to go run the store. I am at work literally right now. So hopefully next week we will have a gutter talk segment.
Yes.
And if anybody has any graphic novel recommendations for our book club, the last Sunday of next month, let us know what you want us to read so we can talk about it. Hopefully we will enjoy it more than this.
Which is October, the end of October. So
make it spooky.
People had a what's that?
Make it spooky. Make it spooky.
Yeah, and good.
Something spooky.
So Len loves horror books.
Yeah.
Says it every single week. Loves horror books. The grodier, the better. Loves horror books. Len, horror tribble. It's the thing.
The body horror in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Just bleh, mangled. Bleh.
And Brandon, who's behind the scenes with us, says, comment, please. This is another thing you can do to help the show.
Oh, yeah.
All right, guys, we love you. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, and we will talk at you later.